So today, we're jumping into the powerful and honestly pretty tragic story of a king who did everything right. I mean, he launched one of the most intense religious reforms in history, but his reward? Well, it wasn't victory, it was disaster. And that's really the question at the heart of this whole story, isn't it? King Josiah was, by all accounts, the best of the best, a truly righteous king. But was all that goodness, all that piety, enough to change his kingdom's destiny? Let's find out. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in the kingdom of Judah. A young King Josiah is on the throne, and they're doing some renovations on the great temple in Jerusalem. And in the middle of all that, his high priest finds something unbelievable. A book of the covenant, a lost scroll of religious law that nobody has seen for who knows how long. And this one moment, it changes everything. Now, Josiah's reaction is just immediate and total. He doesn't hide this thing. He doesn't study it in secret. No, he does something completely radical. He calls everyone together and reads the entire book out loud. Then he makes this public promise to follow its laws, and he gets all the people to agree with him. This isn't just a king giving an order. He's trying to get everyone to buy in, to forge a whole new identity for the nation right then and there. So with that promise made, Josiah just unleashes this tidal wave of reform. And let me tell you, it is breathtaking in its speed and its ferocity. This is not a gentle suggestion. This is a top-down, systematic, and yeah, often violent purge of every single form of worship that wasn't in that book. He starts right in his own backyard in Jerusalem, and he is so thorough. This isn't just about knocking over a few statues. He is systematically tearing down a whole religious system that took generations to build. He's even smashing altars that the legendary King Solomon himself had built. Absolutely nothing is spared. And, just so we're all on the same page here, when you hear names like Baal and Asherah, these weren't some obscure fringe figures. Their worship was deeply woven into the fabric of daily life, into the culture, for centuries. So for Josiah to just rip them out, that was a massive, disruptive shock to the system. And he didn't stop at the city walls. Oh no. He takes his campaign across the entire kingdom, from one end to the other. He destroys all the local shrines. And then, in a really brutal move, he executes the priests of these other religions on their own altars. He even burns human bones on the altars to make sure they can never, ever be used again. So the point is, this was a violent, total eradication. And one of the most horrifying things he stamped out was the worship of a god named Moloch. This involved child sacrifice by fire. It was all happening at a place called Topheth. By destroying this site, Josiah was ending one of the absolute darkest practices in his kingdom's history. So after tearing down all the old ways, Josiah starts building up the new. And the symbolic grand finale of his entire reform is this massive, nationwide celebration of Passover, all done exactly by the rules of that book he found. And to really get how big a deal this was, the text just lays it out plain and simple. A Passover this big, this correct, hadn't been seen in centuries, not since way back before they even had kings. This was it. This was the absolute peak of Josiah's reign. All of this happens in the 18th year he's been king. So at this point, you think, wow, he's done it. He has completely remade his nation's faith. By all accounts, he's a huge success. But this is where the story takes that dark, tragic turn. Because despite everything Josiah has done, despite his perfect record, despite this incredible national revival, there's a shadow hanging over the kingdom. An old prophecy of doom that, as it turns out, even his good deeds can't erase. And this slide right here lays out the whole tragedy in a nutshell. On one side, the text says there was no king like Josiah, not before him, not after him. He was the best, the most devoted. But on the other side, you see that word? Notwithstanding? It's the one word that changes everything. It basically says, yeah, that's all true, but the Lord's anger, which had been sparked by the sins of Josiah's wicked grandfather, King Manasseh, was just too great. The kingdom's fate was already sealed. And the judgment is, well, it's final. God says that just like the northern kingdom of Israel was wiped out, Judah and Jerusalem are next. All of Josiah's righteous reforms, turns out they couldn't turn back the clock on generations of sin. So if the kingdom is doomed anyway, what happens to the good king? Well, the end of his story is just as shocking and abrupt as it is heartbreaking. And it doesn't happen in a temple, it happens on a battlefield. You've got these global superpowers of the day, Egypt and Assyria, making moves on the chessboard. Pharaoh Necho of Egypt is marching his army north. And for reasons the text never really explains, King Josiah decides he has to get involved. He goes out to confront the Egyptian army. And just like that, it's over. The most righteous king in Judah's history is killed in battle. It almost feels random, like a footnote to some other story. His servants just put his body in a chariot and bring him home. The great reformer is dead. And here's the final devastating gut punch. What happens to a nation-saving reform when the one person driving it is suddenly gone? It collapses. Immediately. I mean, just look how fast it all falls apart. Josiah dies. His first son takes over, lasts only 3 months, and gets hauled off by the Egyptians. Then Pharaoh puts another one of Josiah's sons on the throne as a puppet, and just like that, the independent kingdom Josiah built is gone. It's now just a vassal state, forced to pay a fortune to Egypt. A lifetime of work just erased in months. And maybe the most personal tragedy in all of this, his life's work didn't even take root in his own house. Both of his sons who became king are specifically called out for doing evil, for completely undoing everything their father had accomplished. It seems like that great national promise lasted only as long as the king who made it. Which brings us right back to our big question, but now it's got a much sharper edge. Josiah's reforms didn't save his kingdom. They didn't even outlive him. He was the best king they ever had, and he died a seemingly pointless death and watched his nation crumble. So it leaves you wondering, if doom is coming no matter what, does doing the right thing still matter? Is a righteous life a victory in itself, or is it just a beautiful, pointless tragedy? That's something to think about.